What is going on, guys? Lucky for me today, got home here from work and almost everything is here for the build. So we are ready to start the negative GF3 build, and I've got everything kind of laid out a little bit. Man, I really forgot how awesome some of these parts were. You got to just see them to believe them. Let's get started. I'm Chad, this is the Dorky and 40 RC channel, and let's build the F3 today. So I've got some of the stuff sorted out here real quick. And the first thing I just want to talk about is I forgot that the carbon fiber was made out of a forged carbon fiber. So you can just see the really cool design that's built into there, where it's not that usual weavy type of carbon fiber and everything. And then the quality of these nylon prints are just amazing. I don't know what kind of printer he's got. Maybe he has a Bamboo Labs like I do back there. Awesome. Nylon stuff, man, super tough and solid. Has some real nice sound to it. You get a little drill bit here, and it says in the instructions to go ahead and clean out the support material if there's any leftover from your holes. He said you could use a drill, just don't go very deep. I don't really even know if you need a drill. I'm just gonna try like hand twirling stuff and seeing if anything gets in the way. And if we got to use a drill, we'll use a drill. The one big thing I recommend, as you can see, I've got things into one of my divided parts containers here. This is like a rubber one I take to the track. Everything's bagged up in little bags, and you know, here's the box, of course, that it comes in. Everybody likes to see boxes. And then all of the bags, I guess specifically for the kits, are labeled an F3, and then some of the other bags aren't, probably because, you know, he hasn't moved to the phase probably where he's selling parts kits yet for this. It's all just selling kits. So you got your links all in one bags, all the screws were in a bag, bearings, nuts, spacers, washers, all that were kind of like lumped together in one bag but bagged individually. So super happy with the presentation. A little bit of notes, stickers, which definitely are legendary. If you've seen anything about his stickers, we'll be displaying some of those. And of course, I'm starting to get a nice pile of candy here because I got a couple things in. We got the electronics and everything else. Main goal for this video, though, is we're going to try to build through this kit. And then I don't know if we're going to add any extras to the kit, like the drive shafts and all that stuff. Probably do all that in a separate video. You can see here that I've already ripped all of the stuff off the TRX4. Here's the axles. I need to do some work to these as far as swapping around some of the brass to kind of go with a little bit more the way that Karate was talking about, getting some of the heavier stuff off the front, making the rear a little bit lighter, and then moving the rear stuff up to the front here and putting the original plastics back on there with maybe just the brass hexes. So it's kind of looking for some advice on everything. Everybody, I saw a couple of people posted a video, and Jess and Conrad commented, and Jess and Conrad both reached out to me and said, we really appreciate it. And pleasure's mine, guys. Like, I love RC and spreading the word on all this stuff. So hopefully we can help you guys out, and we'll run into any problems, I will let you know before I proceed. Let me go ahead and get started here. A couple things that I got pulled up on the screen. Obviously, I have the instructions up here. Obviously, I have Facebook and the negative GRC in case I need to go ahead and message them or reach out to the group. I've got some pictures of the build I can kind of cycle through as well. And then I do have Conrad's video, because he does have some really nice close-up shots and stuff of the parts that he used, since really I'm just kind of mimicking his build for the most part. That is going to be it for all the prelude here. Let's quit talking and get started on this, because I am super excited. So just skip through the first couple pages of the manual here, and we are pretty much ready on stage one, where we are going to start building up this little miniature transmission type of deal, which is just amazing. The case again on here, the quality on this thing is just so cool. And then of course, you know, we're going to have the little forged carbon motor mount over top of that. Bearings, we're going to need some bearings. We've got some regular and some flanged that are in here. I'll probably put a little bit of bearing lube on there, and then grease is going to be pretty much up to you. I used to grease the crap out of everything, and then I hung out with a bunch of professional RC racers and seen that like they use like very little grease for anything. They like wet gears literally, or run a lot of things dry. So I'm going to oil the bearings, and in a grease application, I'm probably just going to use a little bit of my Hootie graphite grease. just to put a little bit in there. Again, you can take the stuff apart and grease it and re-grease it if you want to. But what I don't want to do is fill these things up with like a bunch of like red tack and then have to like pull all that out because it's not right. I'd much rather have a thinner type of grease in there to rip out and then clean. Lord knows what the inside of these portals look like anyway. They feel okay, so I'm not going to worry about them. Let's go. All right, so we're starting here with page number 5. Pretty easy and simple and straightforward. One thing is calipers are your friend, so make sure that you're using the right length of screws. And a lot of his previous installation videos just mentioned using grease on the end of the screws to help get them threaded properly into 3D print. I think probably since he changed to nylon, it must not be as important, so I'm not going to do that. Also, he did reference before to use light grease, so all I did is just put a little bit of 30,000 of my Kyosho on this gear here. Not a big deal. Lubed up the bearings, and we got bearings on each side of that built just like the manual here. And now we're just going to basically slap this all together. So our next page of the build here, page number 6, all laid out in order and what we need to do on this step. Again, pretty simple. I put some oil on the bearings, measured out my screws with the calipers to make sure those are okay. 3D prints again look great. I just again took the drill and kind of used it as a little hand drill. I noticed these were a little tighter, so not a big deal. Take it real easy on those to make sure that you don't go crooked or melt your plastic. Getting the 3 bearings into this housing here is a little difficult, and it really helps if you have something like a bearing puller, or I even just used one of my Proline tools here that was big enough where, you know, you're pushing on the race, but you kind of got to get it in there, so it really doesn't matter, and hopefully everything works good, but things are spinning just fine. So getting those inside that little black case, just a tad difficult. All right, we've got ourselves another transfer case here, transmission thingy, and now we are moving on to the frames. I've got all of the parts laid out here, as you can see, and we're going to be going through and pretty much just buttoning everything together with the front and back spacers and all 10 millimeter bolts all the way around. So pretty hard to mess this up. Again, just going to follow the instructions here. They do say at the bottom of the page to install the front body mounts first before you put the chassis spacers on, probably because then you wouldn't be able to get your screwdriver in between there. And these are the front body mounts right here. So we'll go ahead and get all this stuff slapped together, show you if we have any issues at all. And here is the chassis all ready to go. Next step, we're basically going to bolt on all the stuff we built before onto the chassis. So really simple, just get out your 8 millimeter screws for the one side, 10 millimeter for the other, and then we are going to actually dig in and use our already pre-made prop shaft, which I will have to find mine around here somewhere. Let's get it going. Okay, spur gear assembly and prop shaft is all on there. We didn't Loctite the screw that goes in there. We'll wait and come back and do that after we make sure that everything is assembled correctly. So we are going to move on to the next page. The next page is going to be installing the lower skid onto our little transfer case that we built earlier on in the day. We're going to be using some 12 millimeter and 16 millimeter screws. So you definitely want to be careful and pay attention to the instructions here to make sure that you don't go too deep on those holes in the front of the skid. So if we take our transfer case and just kind of line it up here, the writing is going to be facing this way, as well with the longer portion of the skid. Screw holes are going to be on this side. So we are basically going together like this. So we're going to have our 2 short ones here in the front, 2 long ones here in the rear, And then our other prop shaft is going to be going on the bottom hole here. So let's go ahead and get that all assembled. Whatever you do here, don't go too crazy with your electric drill, because if you go really hog wild with it, there is a chance that you could go ahead and put those screws all the way through. Now, this is very, very, very tough material, so it's probably unlikely, but you would rather be safe than sorry. Get them in, like Jess says, about 70 to 80%, and then finish them off by hand, and that way you won't have any accidents, and we can thank each other later. So let's see, what are we doing next? Now we're going to be doing everybody's favorite part, links. Great. So we've got all of the ball ends right here for the links, and then all of the links are actually in a separate package here. So it's the one advantage about the F3 kit is that it has its own links, and depending upon what vehicle and axles you are using, it is going to tell you what lengths of everything that you're going to need to use. So we're doing TRX4 here. So we're looking right in the middle. So TRX front lower, we're basically going to be doing 2 like that. And TRX lower rear, we are going to be doing that. So we'll be looking at 154 and 104. So I don't think that you guys need to watch me do this, and we're going to go ahead and get to it. So when making links, everybody has their own way. If you're new to this, things that are always easy to do, I like to take just some kind of black grease, and I use just like an old paintbrush, and I literally just like wipe a little bit of that on there. I do this with all my turnbuckles and everything, just to make things a lot easier to twist and get on there. And these are titanium links, so you can use something like shock pliers to hold the link, which will make your life a lot easier. So if we just put the link in the shock plier there and hold on to it, these links are pretty tough. So you just want to get them started and make sure that they are threading on straight. So you're going to want to give them like 4 or 5 turns. They make wrenches for these and stuff as well, so you don't have to do what I'm doing here and just kind of check it every once in a while. Make sure that if you see it getting out of kilter, that you straighten it up a little bit and that everything threads nicely. And then looks like these are going to go pretty much and get bottomed out. I got one made right here, and I got my calipers spread apart. This one needs to be at like 104. So I'm just going to basically stick it inside each of the balls, and we're at like 104.17, close enough. So we'll just keep on rinsing and repeating for the rest of them. So maybe that's a little tip that'll help you guys out. All right, now we're going to get into a little bit of trickery. We're going to have to hold some of these parts together, because what we're going to do is we are going to take the skid plates and push the screws through, capture the inner part here, and go ahead and screw through there. And then, of course, we are going to capture the links at the same time. The keen eye to you will notice that during this step, I did put the sliders on the wrong side. So therefore, when I was trying to attach the second set of lower links, I had no room to do it. And so I had to go back and look and noticed my mistake. So as you're watching this step, don't make the same mistake that I did. The little pointy slope follows the frame and goes towards the front. 35 millimeter back here, 30 millimeter right there. So little trickery, but nothing that we can't handle for sure. So we're going to go one on this side, one on this side. We do want to make sure that we are using the right screws. So you are going to be using 235s for the rear. So a 35 and a 30, and then a 35 and a 30 on the other side. So 35 is going to go towards the rear. So basically what we're going to be doing is, let's take this 35, for example. We're going to go ahead and pop that baby through here, and then it is going to go into the frame, and then into our centerpiece for skid. And then we are going to grab one of our rear lower links, straight side first, and that is going to go in the middle, and we are just going to push everything through and capture that. So we're going to do that for all four corners, the two rears, two fronts, 35 millimeter in the back, 30 millimeter in the front. All right, everything is coming together. We are hooked up now. And if you've got things where like your links are kind of out of position or whatever, don't worry, because you can always straighten those up after the facts. Now, the other cool thing is, you know, when you put shocks together and sometimes there's just not enough room and you got to get your eyelets like lined up just perfectly. There is literally just enough room. It's a little bit extra room to get those eyelets in there and get all this together without struggling. So a lot of forethought into ease of assembly here for sure, because I still struggle with that on buggies and everything, trying to get the eyelet perfectly so I can get it in the arm and get the screw through. So annoying. So this is pretty cool. And in the next step, of course, we have the rest of the links that we need to make, and these are going to be for the upper arms and the rear uppers as well. So TRX4 again for me, 71.2 on the front and 152, and definitely note the orientation so that way you don't have to fuss around with it later. And we're going to get those done and get those installed in the next step. So I will see you back here when those are done. And you can see we're going to get into using the rest of our hardware here. We got some 18 millimeter screws, some spacers, and of course some nylon nuts there. And you can see how everything is going to go together. So we can just go ahead and orient everything correctly here and make sure that we are looking correctly at front to back. And that is where we're going to be at right there. We're going to have our two links going up here in the front, and we are going to have our two links here in the rear, and they are going to be pointing up. So that's how those are going to connect, and they're literally going to connect to the sides of the frame. And if you look on the instructions here, you're going to see in the rear here where there is the holes down here that show where you're going to want to start to actually put these links. So you can see TRX4 down there in the bottom right hand corner is where I'm going to start with mine, and that's kind of like your initial setting, and you're going to have to change it and probably tune everything from there to make sure that everything is all symmetrical and beautiful. And then there's going to be one of these spacers in between each link and the frame. So pretty simple. Going to go ahead and get that all done for you guys, and we'll show you what that's like. We are nearing the home stretch here, adding the shock mounts and the last spacer right here in the middle. Really simple to do. All we're going to be doing, I'm putting these at what I would call an initial setting, which is kind of like all the way up, because you're going to put your bolt through here, nut on this side, and you could probably tighten those up all the way if you wanted to, but I left them a little bit loose. So that way you've got all your holes right there that you can move this down. Same thing here in the back. So that way you can get the appropriate shock angle that you're looking for. Now up here in the front, everything goes together with the bolts, but here in the back, you actually are going to be using the last chassis spacer there to go ahead and go through there. So that is it. Pretty simple. I can't believe that this thing is so freaking light, and it's literally almost done. The build was super smooth. Everything went together as expected. A few little mishaps on my own making, but in the end, everything is all good. Not a lot really to add that I could add to this build except for just build it for you. But the interesting parts are what is going to be coming up next, which is the servo on axle mount, modifications that we're going to have to do the TRX4 axles, and just getting the electronics and everything else up together. So we will see you in the next video. of the series. Peace.